parents are both patrons to the Children's Hospital. At 4, it makes you a patron. Besides, there's going to be a magician. And you like magicians, don't you?
No, I don't. I hate magicians.
You know what I said about being normal?
Excuse me. I'm Lee Tompkins. I work with James Gordon. He's mentioned you. I saw you and thought...
Of course. It's very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
This is my guardian, Alfred Pennyworth.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
How is Detective Gordon doing since the attack on the precinct? I was thinking I should call him.
He'd appreciate that.
Can I get you something to drink?
Just water. Thank you.
So, I hear there's going to be a magician.
Right. You can all come again. How are you?
Sean, thanks so much for being here.
Absolute pleasure.
Congratulations on season 2. I imagine you're in the midst of shooting season 2 right now. How far are you guys along?
Yeah, we're on. We're about to finish episode 9 now, so we're nearly over the sort of halfway hump.
And we've only seen 2 episodes so far this season, right?
That's right.
So there's
yeah.
a lot of stuff that you know that we don't know.
That's right. It will remain that way.
I wasn't going to try to get anything out of you. Talk to me about Alfred, about playing this character who is in many ways, I mean, at least in this season, in the beginning, in combat with a child.
Well, I mean, the thing is, that's the interesting thing about the sort of show's premise in the first place. It's like it's not we're not sort of like reinventing characters. We're sort of redefining them. We're giving them a backstory. And I think the thing is that you sort of ask yourself the question, really, that why does Batman become Batman for a start? For starters, he has to start somewhere. His education has to start somewhere, and it obviously starts at a very early point in his life when he's sort of damaged, and through the guidance of an ex sort of military man, Alfred Pennyworth, played by myself. So his training starts at a much younger age of young Master Bruce, and that's when you sort of first meet them come together.
And now the show shoots all around New York City, but it's dressed to look completely different. I really love the look of Gotham because we've seen so many different iterations of Batman and different directors' visions of what that world looks like. But Gotham to me rings not the most true, but the version that I like the most, which is Burton's Batman. It feels a lot more like Tim Burton's Batman. Was there talk about that going into it?
No, I mean the sort of conversations that I sort of had with Bruno and with Danny Cannon, our 2 showrunners, was that I think the thing is they wanted Gotham sort of exists in everyone's mind's eye. They have an opinion about what it should feel and what it should be like. And I think that what it meant to me when I first started seeing Danny's sort of interpretation of it, it was like a sort of Grimm's fairy tale meets Taxi Driver. Sort of the sort of icky edge kind of thing, and I think that sort of adhered to it. And I think what's happened with the second season, especially, is that we're sort of inviting people into our world now, and we're not so nervous. It's got this sort of confident gait as opposed to a sort of cocky swagger as we sort of had in the first season. It's like it's our world now, and I think the people that embody it and the people who are actually in it, I think people sort of accept that now more. They accept that we're approaching the characters from a psychological element, and it's the city, it's Gotham itself that redefines those characters and molds them into being these from ordinary to extraordinary people later on.
Do you feel like it took a season to really set up this world right, and now you guys can kind of dive into, like you said, the psychology of these characters?
I think very much so, yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's much more. We feel much more confident, and we're sort of like losing that standalone episode feel that we had with the first season. I'm not taking in detracting anything from the first season. We're very sort of proud of it, but I think what we realized and what the fans liked was the interaction of all of these characters. I mean, the thing is, like Jeff Johns, one of our sort of showrunners, when I first sort of asked him, when they don't often know what's going to work and what isn't when you're doing a pilot, and he said it's like getting a big bowl of spaghetti and just chucking it at the wall and see what strands sort of stick. And the thing was, they were slightly hoisted by their own petard because it all stuck. You know what I mean? So there's so many elements and threads that they didn't quite know which ways to follow.
Was there anything for your character that was sort of thrown at the wall that didn't stick, or something that stuck even more so for you?
Yeah, I mean,
Sticking with this metaphor.
Yeah, sticking with the food metaphor, which we had a lot of last night, in fact, kippers and everything like that. Yeah, and the thing what I was really pleased about was allowing Bruno allowing me to make him from the SAS as opposed to just being from the Marine Corps, because they have to specialize in so many separate sort of attributes to be a part of the service, from which echoes really nicely with the interpretation of Alfred, that he can stitch Batman up, that he can make a lovely cup of tea, a lovely breakfast, that he can fight, that he can defend him, that he's a master of disguise and deception, and all of these elements. So that was something that I was pleased sort of stuck. And the fact is that you very rarely, I think you've ever seen Alfred before really being unleashed on his own into the streets of Gotham. And that's something that I've really enjoyed, the fact that he uses his language, which is my native tongue, of course, but I'm not from the East End, but they use that language as a sort of a weapon. And it takes the brilliance of this wonderful actor. I don't know if you saw last night, there's a fantastic actor called Chris Chalk, and he did the best sort of stonewalling of Alfred's vernacular, spectacular, brilliantly last night. There was a great scene where he basically is threatening him, and he stonewalls him. But in a way, it's an audition process to get him onto the Operation Good Guys, which we desperately need in Gotham right now, because it's full of baddies.
Were you nervous going into doing Gotham when it first started? Because it's not just any sort of superhero show or comic book movie. It's Batman. Arguably one of the two. It's Batman and Superman are the two biggest superheroes, I think, of all time that come out of comic books. And there's a lot of expectations put onto these stories whenever they're being told, whether it's a prequel or it's a new version or a reboot or anything like that. There's a lot of expectations.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, it is the first day was, I have to be honest, was terrifying. We had Jeff Johns from DC Comics there. And you really had to pinch yourself, rather severely. We were, I was standing outside Wayne Manor, and there was a young boy standing on a precipice on the top of Wayne Manor's roof. And, there's I'm standing next to Detective Gordon, not Commissioner Gordon yet. And I march out playing the butler. It was quite an experience, I have to say. I mean, very, very large shoes to fill, I have to say, with the brilliant Michael Gough preceding me and the wonderful Sir Michael Caine. But, like I sort of said before, it was a way of we had to redefine, we had to give him a reason for being there. And
did you ever try to get in touch with Michael Caine or anything beforehand to talk to him about the role?
No, I'd be too scared, man, you know what I mean? Someone did a really interesting Instagram yesterday where they cut my face in half with Sir Michael's. It's really bizarre, saying the two Alfreds.
Kind of an honor.
Yeah, it is an honor, in a kind of weird way.
Your scene partner, for the most part on the show, is this young actor. What is his name?
David Mazouz, yeah.
David Mazouz?
Yeah, he's irritatingly brilliant. He's absolutely.
So you don't have to give him.
To shame.
You don't have to give him pointers or anything
like
that.
You are kidding me. You are absolutely kidding me. He is phenomenally brilliant. He did a series called Touch, where he didn't say anything, and I remember him from that. I have to say, he is one of the most sort of charming young men. And that's the great thing about our business, is that it's completely ageless. That you can work with a 7-year-old, you can work with a 70-year-old, but you're all in it together. And you're only as good as the actor that you're working with. That's often the case. And I'm so lucky to be working with someone of his sort of talent. I have a boy the same age as him, and I often forget that he's actually 13. Or he's actually, David's 14, my son's 13. And it's only when they played together when my son's over here on holiday. And it was only when I heard David laughing and mucking around with Freddie and playing computer games and stuff like that, I forget that he's a young chap,
Because he doesn't act like
no,
him on the
he
show.
does
He
not
acts like an adult.
No, he does. Yeah. And I think that's an interesting sort of dynamic with David and myself, is that we're totally at ease with each other. And
it's interesting because
people say it's a dysfunctional relationship, right? But it's actually not, because dysfunction implies that something doesn't work. But it does work, whether it be through a certain amount of violence or something like that. But you have to connect with a teenager, you have to find a sort of common denominator. And I think that Alfred and Master Bruce, they find that, although it be rather bizarre, and his parenting skills a lot to be desired.
It's interesting that as a person, not as the character, he has to remind you that he is a teenager, when in the show it seems like your character's role a lot of the times is kind of reminding him that he's a teenager as the protector.
Very much so. That's exactly right. And I think that's very sort of evident in last night's episode when he gets fired. I get fired for smashing up the computer. Right. And he comes back to me, and they almost make a sort of blood pact contract where he says, if I come back, you must do as I say when I say it, to which, Master Bruce sort of agrees, and to which he completely ignores again. Like any teenager, right? So.
Who would you say your favorite villain of the series is so far?
Oh, come on. I mean, you've got people like sort of Corey Michael Smith, who plays Edward Nygma. Although he's not turned really particularly evil yet, he soon will be, so he turns into the Riddler, as I'm sure that you all know. And, of course, the genius that is Robin Lord Taylor. I mean, there's this plethora of extraordinary talents. Last season, we had Don Falcone. We've had so many. The may or may not be Joker.
That's right.
How strange.
I brought up the who I thought was the Joker in the series to him in the green room, and I was like, "Oh, the Joker's fantastic." And he goes, "You don't know if he's the Joker. What are you talking about?" It's true. I know.
Yeah.
Do you ever get jealous of the actors that get to play the villains? I mean, you're incredible in your role, but it seems the villains get to have all of the crazy, ludicrous fun.
I think the thing is that the only jealousy that I seriously get, and I really genuinely mean this, is that it sounds like some horrible cliche. And I'm sure you guys have heard it a million times before when actors say, we get on so well, we all love each other, and it's wonderful, is that we actually do. And the only frustrating thing what I do get jealous about is I'm not working every day. Right. I know, right, but it's true.
Do you live in New York when you're not working?
Yeah, I mean, when do I become sort of a native New Yorker? I've been here. I was doing a show called Elementary last year, the other cold winter.
The Johnny Lee Miller and Lucy Liu show,
yeah.
right?
I did a spot on that, and then I was asked to stay, and I did a few of those, and that's how I got this one. So we work 10 months of the year doing the show here. So, I live in New York now. Which
what do you think?
Come on, it's like one of those major boxes in your life that you sort of have to tick. A lot of my friends are actors, and I come from one of the second greatest city in the world, London. But I've visited always my friends when they've been on Broadway, when they've been filming here, and they've been at Steiner, like James Purefoy was doing a show called The Following, and Jude's been here on the West End, on Broadway. So for me to be here, my father was here. My father was an actor as well, and when I was a kid, he was on Broadway in a couple of shows. So it's always been something, one of my dreams is to actually work in the States, but specifically to film on the streets of Manhattan.
Which you do every day that you're working on Gotham, right?
Yeah, and I tend to be making cups of tea slightly more often.
Oh, that's true. You're probably in Bruce in the studio.
No, but I get unleashed much more now in the second season. I get to beat the villains up.
You mentioned a few of your friends. You said Jude, right? Were you referring to Jude Law?
Jude and Johnny, and we formed a company a long time ago.
That's what I was going to ask about. Yeah, you formed a production company.
Yeah, it's called Natural Nylon. New York, London. That's the idea behind it, and not realizing actually that's why nylon's called nylon. But it was a fantastic company. We made 0 films, but we had a lot of fun.
Can you talk about that?
So much fun. We didn't actually bother making any movies. So
what happened? Was it just it was just really difficult getting some of the projects off the ground that
No, we had a slate of 12 or 13 extraordinary projects with some extraordinary talent. But the problem was that I met Jude and I met Ewan and Johnny in an audition process for a guy called Paul Anderson, and there wasn't a great deal of sort of independent films being made at the time, and I met them all at this audition. And I met Jude, and Jude got the job, and then I was introduced to Johnny, who'd also auditioned for it. And these guys were like 17, 18 then. And I'm 10 years old, and my friend who's 10 years older than that, a guy called Bradley Adams, who's a very eminent producer in our country, decided that it'd be a great idea to sort of pull us all together and form this company. And I don't know whether that's what makes it attractive, the fact that we were numbered, because to be honest, at the time, that I was actually working a great deal, and the guys that just were starting out. So it was one of those things. It was almost happened too soon, and then their careers started going stratospheric. Ewan was working with me on a film called Blue Juice, and he got Trainspotting, which you've probably seen, which he went boom. Johnny was doing films with Angelina, and Jude was off. Everyone was off and running. And to be honest, logistically, just trying to get us all together in the same room was just impossible. And when we did, we wanted to, party.
So it was kind of the right idea, the wrong time.
Yeah, it's exactly right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what the problem was.
I think we have some time for audience questions, and I bet we got some Gotham fans in the audience that got some questions about the show.
Hi, Sean.
Hey, man.
How familiar were you with the story of Batman before joining Gotham?
Well, I mean, I think everyone is to a certain degree if they like it. I mean, the thing is, there's 75 years of mythology behind them, and I think that what his enduring thing, my enduring fascination was that it's changed with every generation. You know, I used to like Adam West, and when it was on, everyone thinks it's camp now, but I'm that old that I used to jump around on the sofa with my mum's apron on, pretending to be Batman, and I thought that was this shiz when I was young, right? And it still is, you know, it still continues to be enduring. So yeah, I've always been a fan and always will be, I think, you know.
Another question in the audience?
Hi.
Hi. So you've worked a lot in the UK and now also in the States. Can you talk about the differences between working between the two countries?
Well, you get weekends off in America. So it's new. Well, it's very different actually. New York is different to LA. My experiences in LA when I've done a couple of movies down there. It's a golden age of television, and there seems to be so much more help now on screen. There used to be this kind of attitude that a lot of sort of us Ponzi English actors were worried about, where that we always used to demand on it being perfect. I think that was a difference that we always used to say that film was, you know, you did the best of your ability, and TV's attitude is, oh, that'll do. Now things like that's completely changed. There's sort of the level of sort of professionalism and skill that's sort of invested now in television is sort of mind-boggling. And I say this because I genuinely mean it, and it's great to talk about a show that you're on, but I think that this is Gotham's one of those examples where it's all come together. It's operatic in its scale. It's I think extraordinarily well written. I think it's got some sublime actors, or absolutely sublime actors, in fact. I think it's it's a perfect sort of amalgamation of television at this moment.
I was extremely impressed with Gotham the first time that I saw it, and I think I think it's a great show. But when I was going into watching it, I had a certain amount of low expectations because of it was like, you know, a TV network trying to do a comic book movie, which are usually huge on scale. But then when I watched shows, like, wow, all these actors are great. It's like you said, the writing is great, and the production design is impeccable and incredible. It looks like there's a lot going into it, more than you would normally expect, I think, for a TV drama.
Way much more. I mean, I think one of the most sort of negative press articles that I read on the first season was that it was 30 minutes shy of being a movie. So if that's not a positive review, I don't know what's a good one, you know. And that's got so much to do with so the extraordinary talent that is Danny Cannon, because he's got this. He did CSI. He's one of these guys who's got this just incredible eye, and he's a native England Londoner like I am, but he grew up within the industry, understanding from the best boy from the grips to the focus pulling to camera operating to being a DP to being a designer and artist. He understands every single sort of detail of every single person's job. So his attention to detail and his natural sort of verve and artistic eye, I think that always shows, is very evident in all of the shows that he actually sort of produces and is part of. Like he did this really bizarre thing where he was talking about, I was talking to him and they needed a symbol for Fish Mooney, Jada Pinkett Smith's nightclub. And he went, I don't know, and he scribbled on a napkin this image. He said, just something like that. So on the first day of set, the club was based on the nightclub, the Box that's here. And he saw this thing in neon. He went, I don't believe it. And it was exactly what he drew, just on a napkin, just on a whim like that. And that's the level of talent that he sort of has. He's got one of the most impeccable eyes that I've ever sort of had the pleasure to work with.
Wow. Next question from the audience.
Hi.
Hello.
I just want to say I love you in Gotham. It surprised me first season and now getting into second season, because I've always thought that Alfred had more of a demure type of role, but just the storyline that they're giving you, did that surprise you as well, that Alfred himself is starting to stand out as a character in itself?
Yeah, I mean, it's constantly an honor. I mean, it's an honor to be a part of the show, but and also to play the character of Alfred, but the real honor lies in giving him a subtext and giving him a history. You know, I think that our approach is that he's as damaged as Master Bruce. You know, he suffers from post-traumatic stress, and it comes from a very dark place, and he needs the boy as much as the boy needs him, in actual fact. You know, if it wasn't for the boy, I think he'd implode. So, like, just detracting slightly, I find it a really interesting device, the fact that Alfred does everything, and no one ever asks me the question, saying, well, who does the dusting? Who actually makes the bread, or who does the garden? And I love the fact that that device has now been accepted, that he does everything. But in actual fact, it comes from a very true thing, that I don't think Alfred ever sleeps. And I know people like that are scared to close their eyes at night, and I think that that's Alfred.
I think we have time for one more question. Who's got a question?
Hey.
Hello.
Hi, Sean. Hey. So earlier you mentioned that you sort of came upon Gotham while you were on Elementary.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could talk more about how you initially came upon Gotham, the show.
Well, it was weird. We heard this thing in the ether that I think every actor was sort of, chafing the bit about, was that there was this thing in the ether that there was a show called, might be a show, a pre-Batman-y kind of show, and it was during the run-up to the pilot season, and I was doing this show, Elementary, and someone delivered this one-page sort of soliloquy to my hotel and said, look, it's tomorrow. I was like, really? I can't really learn it. But I read it, and it was this impeccable Cockney, if that makes any sense. And it was a really interesting story about a guy going into a pub in the East End who breaks someone's larynx. And I thought, well, this is extraordinary. What the hell is this? I had no clue. They wouldn't say what it was for, what it was, who the character was. And then I was asked straight down. It obviously went reasonably well, and I was asked straight down to Los Angeles, and I saw Bruno Heller sort of loping past, and with Danny Cannon, and I went, Danny, because I worked with Danny on a show. I said, what are you doing, Danny? He said, it's for Gotham, you mug. It's our show. And I went, but who is this? And they said, Alfred Pennyworth. So it was a real, and I said, then they explained to me their approach. You're basically relieved of all of your electronic devices, and you're to put it in a darkened room, and they give you the script. And then that's when I got really nervous, because that's when I really wanted the job. And you could see where they wanted to go with this version of Alfred. And funnily enough, in the episode that was on last night, they cannibalized that particular speech, which was my audition, not audition, but interview speech, and they cannibalized it, and they put it into the scene with Lucius Fox, and that was the actual speech. So it was a really nice...
Before I let you go, what can people... You're on episode 9. You're shooting episode 9 right now, so what can people look forward to this season? No spoilers, obviously.
That's it. It's going to be tricky. You're going to see the rise of the villains.
Done. Oh, wait. What? Yeah. Okay.
You're going to see the rise of the villains. You're going to be introduced to someone who's running for mayorship. Well, you actually know who he is. You've seen him already. He's called Galavan. And you'll see him trying to ascend to power, creating utter confusion and chaos in the streets of Gotham, so he can then rein them in. There is his sort of dogs of war, and he reins them in, and then he can come out smelling of roses, but it all goes slightly wrong.
Awesome. I can't wait to check it out. Sean, thanks so much for being here,
Thank
man.
you very
It's a
much.
pleasure
Thank you
talking
so
to you.